Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Buried Pleasures. I'm your hostess, Pollyanna Amazing. And just as a reminder, just wanted to let you know that we are a part of Just Some Podcast Media family, which includes the phenomenal men over there at Just Some Podcast for Advanced Practitioners. If you haven't ever checked it out, please do. It's a lot of fun and a lot of information. And also the lovely David Metzger, who is Nurse Papa. So today I'm talking to one of my oldest and dearest friends in this world, Maria Dawn. She is a registered nurse, and I've known her since she was a baby almost. And what we're going to talk about today is how her journey through her life has led her to be the most amazing mother of some fantastic kids, and how her relationship with her husband has helped with all of this amazing rearing of children that were kids that were, just stuck out there without anybody. So, Maria Dawn, hi.
Hello.
So good to see you, sweetheart.
Yeah, it's so good to be here.
Fantastic. So, Maria Dawn, I brought you on the show because I saw a Facebook post that you made, and I love, I keep up with you through Facebook a lot because I'm a stalker type, guys out there. If you don't know that about me, I'm a stalker. I have a lot of people that I love, and I don't get to see them in person very often. So you are a badass nurse, mother, awesome. Gosh, I can't, see, there's no words for what you are. To me, you're an angel. So tell me, where in the world did you come from? Tell me all about your life. Let's hear it. Let's start at the beginning.
Well, I am from Quincy, Kentucky. Grew up here. Met my husband when I was 15.
I know it.
Yes. And we've been together since then, on and off. Got married when we were young, in our 20s. Became a nurse.
Yeah.
Then got 2 kids. Yeah. They were actually his cousin's kids, and she lost custody, so we took them.
We'll do that more we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But yeah, keep going. How many years have you guys been together altogether?
21.
21. Woo.
Yeah.
All right, girl. That's awesome. That's awesome in itself. I talked to a lot of people about relationships, and 21 years of a relationship. You guys grew up together basically, right? Like you grew up learning how to have a relationship with this guy, which, by the way, I love him so much too. I call him Mikey. We call him Sean. I don't know. Sean Michael is his name, and he's just the sweetest thing. But yeah, so you grew up in Quincy. And just by proxy, I met you through my little brother, actually.
Yeah.
Because you guys are all the same age or around that. And nursing was something, I think I saw you. Didn't we precept you some in the ER or something like that? Didn't my husband maybe precept you a little bit? We saw you.
Yep.
That's been a long time ago.
Not only that, when I got sick, you saved my life.
What?
Yes.
Oh, let's stop a second. Okay, you can continue because I have to take I'm very emotional and I'll cry at the drop of a hat. So how did
you forgot about that, didn't you?
I don't remember. Tell me. I mean, like I know this sounds like radio, but this is not. How did I save your life?
When I went to the ER when my bowels perfed.
Oh my God, I totally forgot.
God. Nobody, like, I kept passing out, and they kind of just assumed that I was on drugs and stuff, and you came in and said, no, I know her, and she is not on drugs, and you called Dr. Song and had him come see me.
I did.
And he left church to come see me, and I ended up with a colostomy and in ICU, and if it wasn't for you, I would be dead because I was septic.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So anybody else out there that knows me as a nurse, I'm a very big patient advocate. And there are a lot of times where in the area to which Maria Dawn and I have grown up in and been around, the drug issue, addiction is a big deal, right? We all know that. And it's really hard sometimes to remove yourself from the perspective of the ER nurse, who is me, and like everybody else, and be cognizant of the fact that there are more than just drug addicts out there seeking attention for their care. And it's really sad to think that whenever a young lady would come into an emergency room and have abdominal pain, that's the first go-to thought that you have to have. But, in a practical way, that it happens a lot, that people fake pain and injury for medication, for pain meds. And that sucks. But holy shit, I totally forgot about that. I didn't bring you on the show for that. Now I'm gonna get off. Oh my gosh. Shoot. But oh shoot. Oh, anyway, let's move on before I do start blubbering like a big old baby. So you had a colostomy, you've had all these things. Tell me what happened after the colostomy, after you got out of the hospital. What made you want to become a nurse, by the way?
Well, I was actually in like my 3rd week of LPN school. And they offered to work with me and all that. And I just knew I would be too far behind. Because I've always wanted to be a nurse. Because, around here, it's, you're a nurse or you're a teacher or,
right. Or you work at the prison.
And yeah. And like, pretty much my whole family is nurses, and Sean's family and just everybody's nurses. And I just knew that's what I was going to do. So I went back after I got better the next year, went to LPN school, started working. Then a few years later, went back for my RN, and just here I am.
I'm so proud of you too. And you know what? That reminds me of something too. You were talking about LPN school. Brenda Haar liked a comment or something that I posted the other day, and I swear to you in my heart, if anybody knows anything about the Scioto County Joint Vocational School in Ohio, in Portland, well, right? That woman is a badass. She's always been a badass. I tell you, I think she's trained a majority of the LPNs that ever came out of Scioto County. And she's old school. She didn't put up with shit.
Yep. Nope.
So if anybody hears this and knows her, let her listen to this. Miss Haar, you have always been an inspiration to me, and I've always emulated her whenever I think about when I teach in person, like the nurse residency program. I'm the Miss Haar, except I don't smell like coffee. But I always go back to that. I go back to Miss Haar and Miss Hosey, the most awesome of nurse instructors that I ever had in the time that I've been in nursing school. Phenomenal folks, those are. So you were an LPN, you did all these things, and then finally you decided to get married.
Yes.
What happened with that? You got married to old farm boy.
Well, actually, we had lived together. After I graduated high school, we moved in together, and we talked about getting married on and off and never really made plans or anything. And one Saturday morning, he woke me up and said, "Do you want to go get married today?" And I said, "What time is it?" And he said, "It's 6 o'clock." I said, "Wake me up at 8 and we'll go." And he woke me up at 8 o'clock. We went to Walmart and got us the cheapest bands we could afford, and we went to the courthouse, and they said we had to wait for the guy that actually could perform the ceremony or whatever. So we walked across the street to a little like shop that had like the smell good stuff and the primitive stuff and all that. And the lady running it asked what we were doing, and I said, "Well, we're waiting for the guy to marry us." And she said, "My son's on his way, and he's a pastor. He can marry you."
Oh.
Yeah. So she set up this little thing in the corner so we could have a nice picture. And he married us in this little shop. And in our wedding picture, you can see price tags hanging from things that were for sale in the store.
That's an awesome story.
Yeah. Like, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Like, it was perfect. It was just me and him, and it was just perfect.
Well, how awesome the lady had. Were you in Catlettsburg? Where'd you go? Did you go to Vanceburg? Where
It
were
was
you?
Greenup.
In
It was
Greenup.
in
Oh,
Greenup.
okay. Okay. I got married in Greenup once.
Yeah. Doesn't everybody?
Yes, I
I
think
mean,
so. Anybody from that area, if you haven't been to the little wedding chapel in Greenup, then you aren't nobody. That is so hilarious. So you married this guy, and people out there don't know about Sean, and the situation that he grew up in. Like he's pretty resilient little guy too. He had some rough beginnings as well, with his dad dying when he was little. Coming to live with a crazy bunch of people in Quincy.
yeah, to say the least.
To say the least. I mean, yeah. So it's really cool that you guys have gotten to grow together. How do you think that all of this, like that spontaneity, like who gets married on like, hello, hey, you want to go get married today? Who does that? Has he always been spontaneous like that? Like,
No, not at all. Like he's usually like a very planned person,
Uh-huh.
very like, everything has to be by the book, by the plan. I don't know. It was just he said, like it was kind of weird because like one time I would want to get married and he's like, let's just wait. Next time he'd want to get married and I'd kind of have cold feet. So it was just like, we're doing it. We're doing it right now before, we can't match it up. You know what I mean?
Right. That's so cool. I see. I didn't know that story either. Man, there's so many things. Gosh, that just makes me feel like I'm getting old now because I don't remember any of this stuff. And I hate that. But then I'm just going to say too, this goes to show you that you never know what kind of influence you're going to have on people. So always be your best self as much as you can. Don't try to be a
Yeah.
dick. Oh, sorry. Don't try to not be nice. I'm trying to get away from using that as a negative connotation. But, I didn't realize that you guys had just, decided to get married, because for me, I've always seen you guys together for the longest time. And it's
Yeah.
never been like, are you married? Are you not married? You were Marie Dawn and Sean. That's it.
Yeah.
And I tell you, one of the coolest things that I can remember about you two as a couple, was that you guys were always really playful and cute. A lot of times you see a lot of jealousy happening, and I never saw that in front of me. Even if it happened, it may have happened to you guys behind the scenes, but I don't remember that ever being such a thing. You guys were always the sweetest couple. But with every relationship, there are terrible and awful things that happen. So tell me, how did you guys in the beginning, because you were young, how old were you when you got married?
When we got married, I was 23.
Okay, you were young. So, I mean, that's not young back home, but
Yeah.
but in the real world and out everywhere else, 23 is kind of young to get married. So how did you guys deal with your problems and your issues? How do you think that worked out?
We've just always been really good at communicating with each other.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, I'll just tell him like, I need you to love me more today. I'm being needy today, and he will give me what I need. He will hug me more. He will tell me he loves me more. He will tell me I'm beautiful more. And at the same time, if he's in a bad mood and, he was supposed to mow the grass today, and I'm like, hey, yo, you're supposed to mow the grass. If he's honestly having a bad day, he can tell me, just not today. It's not a good day.
Yeah.
And we don't use those things as excuses.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's very once in a while that it happens, but we know that when those things happen, that we need each other.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just about telling each other what you need. Nobody knows unless they get told.
And who taught you that, honestly? Because I know, well, and this might, I mean, you came from a divorced family too, right? Like a lot of people. Who taught you how to communicate like that? Who told you that was what you needed to do? Or how did you learn that?
Well, I came from a divorced family, but they were very affectionate. And Sean came from a family that was still together, but was not affectionate at all. So instead of what's common, where people bring the bad things from their childhood, we decided to bring the good things. He brought we were going to stick together no matter what. And I brought, we were going to be affectionate and loving and communicate.
Yeah.
Like we made that our goal, was to bring the good things instead of the bad things.
That's one of the things that my dad always told me before he died was, if you don't tell people that you love them, how the hell do they know that you love them? So do it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I came from, you've met my family. They're all, there's some that are awesome and there's some that are less awesome, but we came from a loving family. We did. I mean, we never had a thought of ever being in harm's way or anything like that. I knew I was loved. I knew we were cared for, even though we all lived in the same damn neighborhood. And sometimes it's a little tough to live next door to your entire family. That may or may not be why I'm in Washington at this point, but stretching my legs a little. But we did come from a very loving and good Christian family for that matter. But that's another thing I like to talk about too, is how that's, how religion kind of made me who I am as well. And my thoughts on how I needed to separate myself from some of the things that I heard back in those days. And I think I've done a wonderful job, and I still preach the loving kindness that I always have, most definitely. But when you've got that, that background, like you said, you want to have that love. You wanted to make sure that he didn't have that growing up. So maybe that was something that you could offer him, and he was going to stick with you no matter what, regardless. And I think that I've seen that. Now, talk about, if you will, what happened when you found out when he got sick. Tell me about that.
Like with his surgery or his.
Yeah. Well, with his, talk about mental health issues and his illness, if you don't care, if that's okay.
Well, in 2016, we found out that he had a Chiari's malformation. He was complaining like he was choking on his own spit. He couldn't feel his arms when he would wake up. And I'm a nurse, and that how we are. I was like, quit being a pussy, pretty much.
Yeah, right. And not bleeding out of every hole in your body, buddy. Shut
it. Like, you'll be fine. So it went on for quite a while, and he's always had headaches, so I didn't think anything of it. And they finally scanned him and all that and found out like his brain was herniating down into his spinal cord. So they did the surgery, and it went a little different than we had like kind of foreseen for him. So there was a lot of rehab and a lot of aftercare that he needed that we didn't necessarily anticipate. So it took a long time. But then after that, about 3 months after that, he attempted suicide.
Yeah. That broke me apart. And I mean, like, and I'm over here as a bystander. But I've loved him like he was my own little brother too for a long time. And that really affected me. And I wanted you guys to be so okay, that it was tough. And this is not about me. This is about you. So after that happened, tell me, how did he get past that, do you think?
Well, they got him, he was in ICU for a while, and then he went into a psychiatric facility and got into counseling and to seeing a psychiatric nurse practitioner. And it was hard for probably a year until he got the right diagnosis and on the right medication regimen and all that, because he's schizophrenic. So there's a lot of stigma and all that goes along with it, because you generally only see it like on TV, and it's the ones that are like the killers on the shows, and so we had a lot of hard times. And I think he had a really hard time too after his brother died, which I think has not really helped the mental health issue at all. And since then, he's had quite a few hospitalizations for it, just because he goes now twice. He's had to be mandatory admitted through the ER, but now he's he's good about, like, if he can't get into the doctor,
Mhm.
he will call somewhere and get an assessment and go in voluntarily
Yeah.
just, to get his medications adjusted. And
Yeah. That's awesome. I think that the fact that you're sticking with him and that you guys have built this wonderful life, even with these diagnoses, like you are not your diagnosis. You are not the schizophrenic. You are not the person with the tumor. You are not the person with a colostomy. You're a human, right?
Mhm.
You're not that diagnosis. And I think a lot of the times we miss that whenever somebody says, oh, well, they have this or that or whatever. So you discount them as a human. I think that Sean's done a great job. Well, in my eyes, anyway. I think he's done a great job. And I think you sticking with him and keeping him on track is also huge. I mean, like, you should pat yourself on the back for that one, honey. That's a tough one. So
Well, I mean, honestly, I really don't think so, because when somebody is your person, like, that's that's your purpose, is to not just be there when stuff is good.
yeah,
Because if somebody goes into it thinking it's always going to be good, it won't last,
true
because
story.
there's never, ever always going to be just good.
Right. You're so right. So Marie Dawn, how is it for you on that from a sexual aspect? What happens whenever one or the other doesn't really feel like being intimate or, having sexual relations? How does that work?
Well, there's definitely a difference in being sexual and being intimate.
Mhm,
He can do things that are intimate for me,
mhm,
that aren't sexual, that make me feel close to him, and vice versa.
mhm.
And there's also things that are sexual that he can do for me
Uh-huh.
that aren't necessarily intercourse,
Right,
because usually that's the problem, especially with males and medication.
right,
So, he is happy when he makes me happy,
right.
and, we still feel close.
That's awesome. And that's an important part. I think people get hung up on the sex part a lot. And I know when you're working through medical issues, you're not feeling like you want to do it. Like the penetrative sex part is not something that, is always a thing. And that's where people get confused, I think, when we talk about pleasure. When I say the word pleasure, a lot of people get uncomfortable because they think, oh, she's going to talk about sex again. But it's that holding hands. It's, I always compare like when Dave touches my butt when I'm brushing my teeth before he goes to bed. That to me is like, it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with an orgasm or whatever, but it's just that feeling that I feel in my heart. You just feel it. You feel it. It's like, oh, he does love me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So moving on, because you have a timeline of some amazing things. So one time I'm going to keep on track, but moving on. So you got this relationship, and tell me about when it comes time to talk about having kids in this relationship. What happened?
Um, we had talked about it on and off, um, and, like, we had never really not tried to have children or prevent it, and it had not happened really.
Yeah.
And then just one day, his cousin got her children taken away,
Mhm.
and we took custody of them. And at the first court hearing, where, like, they tell her what she needs to do and everything to get them back, it was pretty much like clean your house, all of that kind of stuff. She just stood up and said, "I don't want them. They can keep them." So the judge looked at us and was like, "Will you guys keep them?" And we were just a week into it, like, we hadn't talked about anything,
Right.
So, like, I look at him and he looks at me and he was like, "Are we doing this?" And I was like, "I guess so." I mean, all our major decisions in life are just like a split second decision.
Right. Hell yeah, let's go. Let's take on some kids. Sure. And how old were the kids at
Yeah,
that time?
4 and 6.
4 and 6. So you have these, and I mean, like, it's not like you hadn't ever seen these children before, but they weren't coming to your house every day. They didn't know you that close, correct? At that
No, mm-mm.
point, right? So you have this person and she was unable for whatever reason. We can go into that, or we don't have to, it's up to you. But for this person not to be able to take care of her kids, and she realized it and said, okay, I don't want them. And you know, this is many years of contemplation of me saying it this nice way that I'm saying it. And I'm outside the box of this. You have been in the middle of this, watching these kids come into your home. Like, how the heck did that, what happened? Let's just talk about what happened.
Well, they came to us with practically nothing. You know, and at the time we didn't know exactly the extent of the abuse, and they still wanted to see her. That was their mom.
Right.
So I would pay her $20 and go get her a couple times a week to come see them.
Uh-huh.
And then stuff started coming out about sexual abuse and things like that. So we started them in counseling, and, the counselor said, of course, that we should cut off any visitation or anything like that with her.
Uh-huh.
And that's what we did. And she signed over, all her rights and all that.
Uh-huh.
So we got to adopt them a year later, which is really, really quick for an adoption.
Super quick. Do you feel like that signing over of the kids was her way of trying to be helpful, or do you think that it was just something she thought she had to do? I'm just an opinion.
I feel like that she thought if she didn't, that they would investigate it very hard and she would end up in prison.
Okay. Okay. So you have these beautiful kids and you find out that this abuse, they've been abused in a way. And you're trying to work through that. So behaviors happened, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Yeah. So talk about that a little bit if you don't care.
Well, there was a lot of toileting behaviors. They would, use the bathroom in the floor, smear it all over the place, be sexually inappropriate in, public.
Mhm.
They would talk about sexually inappropriate things that, no child should know.
Right.
I remember Jill going to preschool and crying one day because she told them she didn't think that Sean loved her because daddies were supposed to kiss their little girls on their privates when they loved them.
Yeah.
Just a lot of stuff like that. And then Josiah, he had a lot of anger issues for a long time. And I think a lot of it stemmed too from where she was family.
Right.
Like, people took sides and not many people took their side, and they
Right.
seen that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, I think in any kind of, you have the he said, she said part of abuse and that sort of thing. But when you see these behaviors manifesting in a child, then you pretty much can assume that, allegations are absolutely accurate. So moving forward, you had the kids for a year, you got to adopt them. They have been beautiful and thriving ever since. And they are wonderful kids. Like sometimes I think, man, I wish my kids were so nice, but not that they're not. My kids are lovely, but I'm just saying, these kids came from a really, rough background, and you have provided them a home, but you've also provided them a safe space to be a kid, and and they've thrived. And that's what can happen when adoption goes right. That's the important part. But let's move on a little further now that they're just amazing angels. And Josiah, he just graduated recently, right?
No, he's going to be a senior this year.
Senior this year. Okay. Sorry. I thought he and Tony were the same age, but okay. So he's graduating. He's an amazing young gentleman, he's awesome. Jill's grown up to be this beautiful girl, and you take them to Frankfurt. Do you still do that? Take them to Frankfurt every? So let's talk about that. What's that about?
Every April, which is Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month, they plant pinwheels blue and silver in the Capitol lawn. They plant one for every child that receives services that year. And we go and help them plant them. And I mean, it's just like it's a beautiful thing, like to watch the kids and how they've grown every year doing it.
Yeah.
It's a very sad thing because there's so many. There's so many. It just fills the whole thing.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful thing to watch and see, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that my kids want to advocate and tell their stories and be a part of that.
I think it's important because if we sweep it under the rug, nobody wants to talk about all the yucky stuff. We talk about all the cool stuff. My show is about sex and love and pleasure. And sometimes the negative parts have to be brought to the forefront for you to get past them so that you can move on to the good stuff. And you've really hit the good stuff. And because I was going to have you on the show, I looked up a couple things just because I like to look up info. And in all honesty, according to one of the major child welfare sites, sexual abuse claims are down since 2007. They're down in 2018 was the statistic that they're down from 17% to 9% of the kids that are reporting it. And then also just physical abuse is down from 27% to 18%. But the sad thing is in those numbers, you'll see that the highest number or age of the people who are being abused are, around the age of between 3 and 5.
Yeah.
That to me is so sad. And, working in the ER for all the years that I did, I've definitely seen a great number of children who have been subject to abuse. And it's always sad to see because, the social workers will tell you that it's easier to send them back to their families, even though they're being abused there, because they're definitely probably going to get abused in their adoptive or they're in the other home that they're going to. So, in the foster system. So you provided these kids with a wonderful home. And then what happened? You got more kids.
Yeah. All kinds of kids.
Whose idea was it to try to help more kids?
At first it was Sean's, actually.
Yeah.
We were just driving around one day and he said, "What do you think about it?" And I was like, "Are you sure?" Because it wasn't something that I would think that he would be for,
Right.
And he was all for it. And we had started the classes to foster, and somebody that we knew, their siblings had been taken into foster care. And where we had been around them before in Kentucky, you can do kinship care or fictive kin, which is where you know them. It's usually a teacher or something that does that. Gotcha. But so we took them. So we had 2, and then we finished our foster classes and took in 3 more. So we were at 7.
And she had to get a new car, y'all, because they all fit in her own. So now you have 7 foster kids at this time. How many do you have?
No, 3. The 3 went home.
Okay, gotcha. And I meant at that time. So you had those.
Oh yeah, 7.
Okay. You had 7 at one time. And so some of those went home, and then did you get more or same ones?
No, it was the same ones. We kept the same ones for like 2 years.
Okay. And then what? They got adopted too?
Yeah, well, the 3 went home, and then the 2 that we had in fictive kin, we adopted in December.
Nice. And so now you have more babies at your house. Not babies, kids, right? How old are they?
Yeah. 11 and 13.
11 and 13. So what you have done is created a safe space for these beautiful kids to grow up in. And how are they doing? Are they thriving?
Yeah. I think like a big difference in our house, and I've noticed in a lot of other homes, is like we don't care when they talk about their biological family. It doesn't bother us.
Right.
I'm not offended. It doesn't I'm their mom. They had another mom. They have other family. If, our two youngest, their sister comes to our house and spends the night, it's the more people that can love a kid, as long as there wasn't sexual abuse or something like that,
Right.
as long as it's a safe issue, as long as there's no safety issues, I guess, come on and see them.
I think that you're amazing. And I think that Sean is pretty flipping fantastic too. I love that kid.
I like him too.
Y'all are old now. You're not kids anymore. But what a great thing that you have done. And look at the love that you're spreading. And each of these guys, each of these little kids that are involved with you, and even the friends of these children that are involved in your care and in your home, they all have, they're going to take all this in and they're going to spread it out. So I always say that I'm a big fan of loving kindness, and what you're doing is spreading a wicked case of loving kindness. And that's fucking awesome. I love it. I love the fact that in your lifetime and in my lifetime, I've gotten to see you grow as, as a nurse, as a mom, as an adult, into this beautiful family,
Aww.
amazing keeper of hearts. That's what you are. You're a keeper of hearts, honey. And it's fantastic.
Aww.
And I appreciate you for that. And thank God I saved your life. Shit.
It's all because of you.
I'm trying to make light of the situation, but really, honestly, I am so proud of you and so proud of the cool shit that you're doing. And I'm going to encourage you to write a book about what you're doing and what you have done, and let Sean be part of it too, because I think it's important for you to get your story about how these kids can find love in different places, even though you're not their, biological parent. It's pretty damn good. That's what I say. But off of the seriousness, let's move past all the seriousness of me saving your life. Just saying, no. Also, what a big thrill it was for me to be there for when Sean had his surgery too. When I worked at Riverside, that was also a really, that's really close to my heart, because just a little side note, years ago, my mother's sister, Janet, was in a really bad car accident and passed away. And so her husband remarried to the mother of Sean. And it's definitely a different situation, because I'm not going to talk badly about anybody in this situation, although some people might want me to. That it's awesome to see Sean's maturity level and how you guys have really brought together this cohesive family group. It's really, it makes my heart happy. But moving past all of this cool stuff, this amazing way that you're a mom, as a mom, now that you have all these, how many kids do you have still now? 5 at the house?
Four.
Okay. So you have 4 at the house now. When the heck do you guys ever have quality, quiet time for mommy and daddy? Do you go on date nights or anything? Do you have that?
Yeah, no, we do.
Okay.
And the kids know it's important. We tell them it's important.
Yeah.
Mom and dad need time alone. We need to be with each other. And we do little things too, like once a week when the kids go to bed, we'll go take a drive, and sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes it's 3 hours.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that we sit outside by the creek and sit in the swings and just talk about anything. We lay down at night.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be an extravagant date.
No.
Time to see, that's, I think people get caught up in that, like, oh, I have to have this crazy, like we need to go here, go there. You don't. You can jump in your car, you can take a burn ride, go down the road for 3 hours. Or you can sit by the creek is a Kentucky thing. I like it. That's what we used to do when we were kids. Go sneak and smoke cigarettes, whatever. That's just the thing that you did, but I think that it's awesome. So when you lay down at night, that's your snuggle time, cuddle time, whatever. You don't
Yeah.
have to get graphic.
Or or we'll talk to each other while the other one's in the shower.
Gotcha. For all you moms out there, code word, we're talking. Mommy and daddy aren't wrestling though. It's all good. See, those are amazing things that other people out there need to hear, that there's some really hardworking and phenomenal people that are keeping the youth of our nation safe and away from harm. And that's so awesome. And you're doing it, and you should be very proud of yourself, sweetheart, because it's pretty fantastic. I like it.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. But I know that it's late where you are. And also, I don't want to keep you forever away from all these kids and that lovely husband of yours. But I just want to thank you, Maria Dawn, for coming on here and kind of shedding some light on just what exactly it is to be like a foster mom, an adoptive parent, and try to live like a normal life. If you had if you had the ability to say something to a parent, mom or dad, or a person who wants to get into fostering or adopting, what's your advice on that for them, if you would?
I've heard a lot of people say, like, I don't think I could love another child the way I could my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen people do it that have said that very thing.
Yeah.
It's just, and I've even, thought that about older kids because they have their own personality but when a child just walks into your home and into your life, they're just yours from day one.
Yeah.
That's it. It's all over. It's a totally different experience, and you may not be able to be there for their first steps or their first word, but you're there the first time they make the decision to call you mom, or the first time they get to go out to eat, or the first time they ever decorate a Christmas tree. There's different firsts that you get to experience, and it makes it all that much more sweet.
Oh, that's so cool. You're awesome. Thank you for coming on my show. Thanks for reminding me that I'm a hero.
You are.
Shut up. You're a hero. You're a hero. That's it. You are beautiful. I love you so much. I appreciate you. And I hope that one day when you write your book, that you write in the liner notes, Pollyanna is badass and I love her too. I just think it's great. And so your plans to continue this relationship with this old Jebediah man that's got that long beard, and I love him so much. So you and Sean have been married how many years now?
14.
Jeepers. So just so everybody else out there knows, I've only ever been married the longest for 12 years. I've been married a couple other times too, so it doesn't count. But anyway, that's so awesome. I hope that you guys continue to be prosperous, and that these other children that you've recently adopted, more so a lot sooner than the other guys. I hope that this all continues to go well, and that these kids really know how great you guys are, and how great they are for bringing, what a great learning opportunity as a parent to be able to switch it up, because it is, it's totally different. You were just saying it's totally different, but it can all be a huge, big pleasure to do. Right. So this is a different kind of pleasure. We're talking about the pleasure of the heart, not the genitals today. Who knew we were going to talk about that? But again, I love you. Thank you for being here.
Okay. I love you. Thank you.
Well, guys, this is another awesome episode of Buried Pleasures. If you haven't checked me out, you should check us out on YouTube at Buried Pleasures. You can also find me at Twitter, Buried Pleasures. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. You can find the podcast on any of the major podcasting platforms. Maria Dawn, thanks again. All right.
Thanks.
You guys have a good evening. Bye.
Just Some Podcast Media.